What's up, friends? So, this is take 4, and it's about this. Unaccepting in laws actually means what about who? And we're talking about it because, one of our friends and everyone that they're involved with, their spouse and the in laws are all kind of been in this for like 6 to 10 years or something like that. And so, we don't know the lot of them, but we know our friend, and so we feel for them because if I put myself in a person's shoes, it's like, well, if I said I do to someone for forever, that's a long time to consider even parts of yourself not being accepted. It's a really long time. And although I've never been married, I can relate, several long-term relationships, but with my own biological parents, I used to struggle with this. And, let's say for those that are celibate, maybe with their spiritual parents not feeling accepted, or even people that have never been married, just, with their divine parents, looking for a connection there, not feeling accepted. If forever is a long time to even think about not being accepted or not accepting something or someone, right? So then, well, where's the commentary? I think it should be in the future or the possible outcomes, the possibilities. Why? Because especially if you don't know everyone on an individual level, even if you did, it's not entirely the best idea to talk about what led up to it because you weren't there every second of every event. And it's not entirely the best idea to talk about each person individually or their character. So skip that. What are we left? We're left with, well, the future. Okay, so then how do we start with the future? Maybe we qualify what that means. And perhaps what the future means is it's the place where possibilities are existing. Ideal ones and less ideal ones. Okay, well, that makes sense. All right. And then you could say that the possibilities, lesser ideal or ideal ones, they're made up of things that are done in any given present moment. Right. So we can also say the participation or the utilization of options with everyone together. And whatever they are able to do or make of, that's what creates a future. So, for example, where would the family vacation? Where would they eat? Where would they hang out? When would they spend time together during the holidays? And then do that. Then that's going to shape the future. Okay, so then that makes sense. All right, so then what happens if you start to take away or if you start to be unaccepting of those things that any present moment can allow for? So less places to vacation or less food to eat or less time during the holidays to make room for each other. You start being unaccepting of that. What happens to the future? Well, what I think is, the possibilities, the quantity of them lowers. You have fewer ideal situations, but fewer less ideal situations. But there's an important point there, which is, well, that might lower the possibility that I'll have to experience lesser ideal outcomes. True. But it'll also lower the possibility of the ideal outcomes happening. That's also true. So then I guess the question for that is the future problematic if we lower the amount of ideal outcomes at the cost of also accepting the possibility of lesser ideal outcomes? Is that a problem that we lower the amount of outcomes, both ideally and unideally? Well, yeah, I would think so. And so, well, how can I steelman that? And George Peterson talks about it. Well, if something is a problem and you defer it, it doesn't get better. It doesn't even stabilize. It gets worse. So by that logic, if it's problematic to lower the amount of possibilities in the future, both ideal and less ideal, if that's problematic and it's not dealt with, it's going to get worse, which means the amount of possibilities that anyone can get to an ideal possibility is going to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink until, well, maybe there's no possibility of an ideal future at all. So if that's the case, then ask me, and if you're asking me, again, is it a problem? At that point, I would say yes. Because you want to get to the ideal. And, well, maybe it's understandably challenging that getting to the ideal means experiencing what isn't sometimes. So anyway, that structure of thinking about this, where the primary predication is the future, and applying that to the actual situation or the actual marriages, right, or relationships, could work, because you would do what we just talked about here. Well, we might not have to, we don't really need to talk about what led up to this. We don't need to attack each other's character. We don't. But we could, and maybe should, look at all the ways that we can get to what would be so awesome later on. Let's do that. And for anything that we might have to experience that is not ideal, or maybe even, deeply emotionally disturbing, well, instead of wondering when it will come or wondering what it might be, well, we can deal with however it might manifest in this situation, and probably less ever, and hopefully never, because now what's going to happen? The future is based on the group participation and aiming for the ideal together, as opposed to breaking up group participation and focusing on what not to accept, or focusing on the lesser ideal. Yeah. Out of time here. What do you think?